Kevin Durant. We talked about it a couple days ago. He had this big brouhaha on social media with Michael Rapaport, friend of the show, actor who's been on the eye many times. And Durant used some language that was just way out of line. It was private. Now, he and Michael Rapaport were going back and forth on direct messages, which are private. And Durant brought Rapaport's wife into the conversation. Didn't disrespect her, thankfully. But still, Rob, you know this. You don't bring anybody's wife, mother, or daughters into a conversation.
Just leave it out.
Right.
Just leave it out. It can only cause trouble.
Yep. And he said his wife, your own wife don't respect you. Like, that would make me mad too, you know? And so what Rapaport did, and I told Rapaport, I texted with him, texted with him. And I said, I didn't agree with you putting out private messages, you know. And he said, I see your point. I somewhat agree. But he just set me off with the putting his wife into it and all that. So Rapaport released them, and Durant used language that was discriminatory toward homosexuals and just it was just bad language. And so he came out a couple days ago and apologized. Here he was.
I'm sorry that people seen the language I use. That's not really what I want people to see and hear from me. But hopefully I can move past it and get back out on the floor.
Now, he was fined $50,000, Rob, by the NBA for that language. And it's precedented in that, you remember years ago, Kobe Bryant, Joakim Noah used homosexual slurs. I think they both may have been referring to referees.
Yep.
Yeah, and they were
fined. It wasn't going to be tolerated. It wasn't going to be allowed.
Right. And look, we get it, Rob. We understand people talk differently in locker rooms, privately. But Durant, he said he's sorry that people saw it. Are you sorry you used it? I mean, that if you're really sorry, then you're sorry that you used it. And I'm not going to jump on him. I'm just saying, I didn't hear in there,
No, that's what an apology is, right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I shouldn't have been using that language. I'm going to do better. He was sorry that people saw it. But anyway, the NBA fined him. And it's interesting, Rod, because it was a private conversation.
No, I get that. But, Chris, when it's made public, and Sean brought it up too, with the Donald Sterling, that was a private conversation, Chris, that was taped. He was talking to his side piece. Am I right?
Yeah, what she said, she was his silly rabbit or something like that, little
right.
rabbit. Or
I'd call it a side piece, But anyway,
yeah, right.
That tape got out. If there was no tape, Chris, and she said that he said that, he'd still own the team.
Absolutely.
Right? No doubt. And once the NBA heard that tape, there's no way they could continue. And even though it was private, once it became public, it became an embarrassment for the league. It was going to be detrimental to the league, cost the league money. That's why they made the move, and that's why they're allowed. If players say and do stuff, people have, they would say, what about my freedom of speech? No. People don't understand what freedom of speech is, Chris. They really don't. When you work for other people and you represent other people, Chris, you represent Fox Sports Radio 24/7, right? All the time.
Right.
You can't go out to a bar and start going crazy and yelling anything you want. That's Chris Broussard from Fox Sports Radio, right? That's who you are. So I think leagues are within their rights to find people when there's stuff that they would consider like a code of conduct. You sign these things when you sign these contracts to play for these leagues, and you give up your right. You give them the right, Chris, to fine you and discipline you on stuff that normal Americans would never have to face.
Yeah, and it's just an interesting situation because as Sean said, it's a slippery slope. I mean, we've heard politicians, Rob, use similar language, or maybe not talking about homosexuals or whatever, but you know what I mean. Use language that is derogatory. Let's put it that way, and get away with it. I don't think we should hold basketball players to a higher standard than other public people.
Can I
like
interrupt?
Politicians?
I'm going to interrupt you. And here's the difference. The athletes work for someone. The politicians are voted in and out by people. So they don't work. So if the people who they represent, Chris, don't like what they're saying or what they've done, they can get voted out. That's the difference. And that's why I don't think athletes are being held to a higher standard. It's just that they work for somebody. If they were independent, you could do whatever. If you're independently wealthy, Chris, you could say, do whatever you want. But you're drawing a check from somebody. I don't care how many millions of dollars it is. You work for somebody else. Somebody's your boss. And they can set their standards, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And even though politicians seem to get away with it, and some do because they get reelected and their constituents don't have a problem, there are others, Chris, who get voted out. And that's where people say, that's my displeasure. I don't like the way he represents my city, my state. You know what I mean? And I want that bum out.
Yeah, it's an interesting time because people are being held, and on one level, you're being held more accountable than ever. But then in other ways, stuff is promoted and acceptable. I mean, and I'll throw this out, and we always talk about creative license. But what about, say, music, whatever genre, that says a lot of stuff that maybe KD said? Or which there is music that says that type of stuff.
I think it's different. I think that's I just think that that's a poetic license, and people, Chris, have the right to buy and not buy that music if they don't like it. That's why they put labels on it.
Should it be played on the radio?
They don't play it on the radio.
There's a lot of type of that stuff is, or even shown on TV nowadays.
But there's things that aren't played on the radio.
I mean, you can't curse. They may beep it out.
They take certain things out. I mean, there are real popular songs. If you listen to it on the radio, you almost don't even recognize it. So there are some limitations. I don't like it. I mean, there's a song, one of my favorite songs by Dire Straits. The song, Chris, you know it, Money for Nothing?
Yeah.
I love that song. Dire Straits, Money for Nothing. But when I listen to the song,
your kicks for free.
Right, your chicks for free. But when I listen to it on Sirius, they take out the F word that we were just talking about, the derogatory word for homosexual.
Right.
It's eliminated from the entire song, and I get it, but the way that the song was originally written and the way that it's done, Chris, it takes away something from the song. The song is not as good, and I'm not being hypocritical.
But they're not being punished. That song is still being played and all that. They're just beeping out words.
But they've taken
remember,
out.
They punished Michael Jackson. They stopped playing his stuff when he referred to Jews in a derogatory way. I don't even think he referred to Jews in a way they didn't like. Remember that? Back in the early 90s? Yeah. And they stopped playing it. So I think it's an interesting story, and you say poetic license. We've always kind of gone by that to some degree. There's always been the FCC, but a lot of stuff is changing, and that doesn't have to be a universal rule that comedians and singers and rappers and things can say whatever they want. Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't or should. I'm just saying that's something that people could get sensitive about too.
But don't I have the right not to go to that guy's comment? If I want to go to a clean comedian, then I figured out who's the guys who don't curse and don't use all that language or the records, the music. I mean, those are my rights to buy and not buy. And if people didn't buy them, Chris, they wouldn't be popular, and they'd probably change their tune. But they are bought, and people do enjoy some of it. And I'm guilty. There's words that I would never use in conversation, but in a song, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it.